Have you ever caught yourself making the same wrong choices repeatedly, even though you know they're destroying you? Have you ever wondered why you repeat the same toxic relationships, the same financial self-sabotage, the same emotional blocks, as if trapped in an invisible cycle? The truth nobody tells you is this: you're not choosing these things. Your brain is. For years, they've sold you the idea that willpower, positive thinking, and motivation are enough to change your life. They're lying to you. Science has discovered something disturbing. 90% of your decisions are made before your conscious thought even exists. You believe you're in control, but you're running mental programs installed decades ago and childhood programs you don't even remember receiving. Itzhak Bentov, one of the greatest pioneers in consciousness and neuroscience, discovered something revolutionary. He proved that the brain functions like a programmable computer. And if it's programmable, it can be hacked. It can be reset, but not the way motivational gurus teach. Not by repeating silly affirmations in the mirror or visualizing your ideal future. The real reset happens at a much deeper level, in the place where decisions actually originate before your will has any chance to interfere. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover exactly how your mind was hijacked by old emotional memories, how an almond-sized structure in your brain is sabotaging every attempt at change, and most importantly, how to deactivate this self-destruction system and finally reprogram your reality. This isn't theory, it's applied neuroscience, and it will completely change the way you view your problems and your possibilities. Every human being carries invisible baggage, a set of silent instructions that dictate how they will react to money, love, opportunities, and challenges. These instructions weren't chosen consciously. They were installed, recorded in the mind during the first years of life, at moments when the child didn't yet have the capacity to question or filter what they were absorbing. The child who saw their parents fighting over debts learns that money equals conflict. The young person who was repeatedly rejected develops the belief that they don't deserve to be loved. The person who grew up hearing, "You're not capable," internalizes that sentence as absolute truth. And the most intriguing part is that these beliefs continue operating decades later, even when the person no longer remembers where they came from or notices they are active. The pattern repeats because the mind works through association. It doesn't distinguish between past and present with the same clarity reason would like. For the deep emotional system, the one that really commands decisions, the present is just a continuation of the past. So the person finds themselves repeating the same destructive relationships, facing the same financial difficulties, feeling the same anxieties, and can't understand why. The sensation is of being trapped in a loop, as if some invisible force pushes them back to the same place every time they try to escape. This phenomenon isn't coincidence, it's not bad luck. It's not the universe conspiring against anyone. It's the direct result of how the brain was programmed to operate. The subconscious mind doesn't evaluate whether a belief is good or bad, useful or harmful. It simply executes the program that was installed. If the program says you don't deserve abundance, you will unconsciously sabotage financial opportunities. If the program says intimacy is dangerous, you'll push away anyone who approaches with genuine affection. If the program says change is a threat, any attempt at transformation will be blocked by powerful internal resistance. The problem is that most people spend their lives trying to change, results without realizing they're rerunning the same mental software. They try to earn more money without changing their emotional relationship with scarcity. They try to find a better partner without transforming the belief that they're not worthy of love. They try to be more confident without deactivating the self-sabotage program installed in childhood. And the result is always the same: enormous effort, minimal progress, growing frustration. Understanding this is the first step to breaking the cycle. Because the moment you recognize you reoperating on old instructions programmed at a time you do and even remember a new possibility emerges, the possibility of questioning those instructions, of seeing them not as absolute truths but as programming that can be rewritten. And that's exactly where the journey of real transformation begins. Because the brain, this extraordinary machine that controls every thought, every emotion, every decision, functions much more like a computer than most people imagine. And just like any computer, it runs programs. Some were installed consciously through deliberate learning, but the vast majority were installed automatically, without permission, without review, without any control from the person who now executes them. The brain doesn't judge the quality of the programs it receives during childhood. It simply records everything repeated with emotional intensity. The child doesn't choose to believe money is hard to get. They simply observe the adults around them living that reality, and the brain registers it as truth. The adolescent doesn't decide failure is intolerable, but after painful experiences associated with error, the nervous system creates an automatic avoidance response. These recordings become lines of code that run in the background 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What's fascinating is that people live believing they're in control, that their decisions are rational, that they freely choose what to do. But neuroscience shows something completely different. Most human decisions are made before conscious thought even enters the picture. The brain processes information, cross-references it with old emotional memories, consults the installed programs, and delivers a ready answer. Only afterward does the conscious mind create a logical narrative to justify the decision, giving the illusion it was rational. This means the person who sabotages financial opportunities is undoing it out of laziness or lack of capability. A program running in their brain says abundance is dangerous, calling attention is risky, leaving the safety zone can result in rejection or failure. So the brain blocks the action before they even notice. They feel internal resistance, inexplicable procrastination, paralyzing anxiety, and interpret it as personal weakness. But it's not weakness. It's programming. The power of this understanding lies in realizing that if the brain can be programmed, it can also be reprogrammed. If it learned to associate change with danger, it can learn to associate change with growth. If it recorded that rejection is intolerable, it can record that rejection is just information. If it installed fear as the default response, it can install curiosity instead. The question isn't whether this is possible. Science has already proven it is. The question is how to do it practically, without depending on years of therapy or willpower that never lasts. Because willpower is just the conscious mind trying to fight the brain's operating system, and the conscious mind always loses that fight. It's a minuscule fraction of total processing capacity. Trying to change using only reason is like trying to turn a ship by pushing it with your hand. It might move a few inches, but the effort is gigantic and the result insignificant. The real power of transformation comes from accessing the operating system and altering the code at the root. And for that, you need to look at the brain structure that really runs the show, the one that acts before any thought arises. That structure is small, the size of an almond, located in the center of the brain. The amygdala functions like an ultra-fast threat detector. It processes sensory information before it even reaches the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for rational analysis and logical thinking. In practical terms, the amygdala has already decided whether something is dangerous and has triggered an emotional reaction before you have time to think. This speed was essential for survival in ancestral times. A second of hesitation before a predator meant death. So the brain developed this rapid response system. The problem is that the amygdala can distinguish between a real life or death threat and a modern symbolic threat. To it, The possibility of rejection, failure, losing money, or being judged is processed with the same intensity as immediate physical danger. And here's the crucial point. The amygdala doesn't react to the present. It reacts to emotional memories from the past. Every experience that generated strong emotion was recorded there. The child publicly humiliated records that exposure is dangerous. The teenager who lost money records that financial risk is threat. The person betrayed in love archives that intimacy leads to pain. These emotional memories remain active, triggering automatic reactions decades later. The system works like this. You face a new opportunity that could change your life, but it involves risk, exposure, leaving the comfort zone. The amygdala scans the situation, finds similarities with old memories, and in milliseconds triggers the alarm. Heart races, breathing shortens, catastrophic thoughts flood in. You interpret these signals as intuition telling you not to move forward. But it's not intuition, it's the amygdala reliving an old fear and projecting it onto the present. Statistics show that about 90% of human decisions happen this way automatically and emotionally. You don't consciously choose to feel fear, anxiety, or resistance. They arise on their own, generated by this primitive structure in constant vigilance mode. And because these emotions are so intense, the conscious mind accepts them as truth. This explains why intellectual knowledge alone doesn't change behavior. You can rationally know you should invest, take risks, expose yourself, but if the amygdala associates those actions with danger, it will block execution. Emotional resistance will always be stronger than rational understanding. This security protocol creates a self-reinforcing cycle. You see an opportunity, amygdala triggers fear, catastrophic thoughts surge, discomfort becomes unbearable. Brain offers immediate exit, avoidance. You retreat, discomfort vanishes, relief floods in, and the brain registers avoidance as success. Next time, avoidance is faster, stronger. Over time, you do and even need the real opportunity to feel blocked. Just thinking about change triggers the fear. The comfort zone shrinks, the prison walls thicken. But these walls aren't concrete, they're neural connections. And neural connections can be undone and rebuilt. This capacity is called neuroplasticity. The adult brain is not fixed. It is malleable at any age. Every new experience, repeated thought, felt emotion literally reshapes its physical structure. Change happens in two ways. The first is passive. Repeating the same patterns every day strengthens those neural highways. The second is active and intentional, and that's where true power lies. The brain reprograms not through intellectual understanding, but through new emotional experience doing something different, feeling something new, responding differently to the old trigger. Real change happens the moment you feel the fear and choose a different response. Feel the anxiety and breathe instead of fleeing. Feel the resistance and act anyway. Each time you do this, a new connection forms. The old one weakens from disuse. With consistent repetition, the new response becomes the automatic one. This is the true mental reset, not erasing the past, but creating a new way of relating to it. Teaching the brain that even when fear appears, the response no longer has to be the same. The tool that makes this possible is profoundly simple: conscious self-observation. It seems too basic to work, yet neuroscience shows it's extraordinarily effective. When you feel the familiar sensation, tight chest, urge to flee, paralyzing anxiety, you stop, even for seconds, and observe the sensation without judging, without trying to fix it, without identifying with it. You create a space between stimulus and response. In that space, everything changes. The brain registers, emotion arose, but the old reaction was not executed. Fear appeared, but there was no flight. The nervous system begins to learn these signals are not commands, they're just information. Deep, deliberate breathing in that moment tells the amygdala, This is a false alarm. Each time you stay present with the uncomfortable emotion instead of escaping it, the automatic fear response weakens. 10 times creates a new memory. 50 times establishes a new pattern. 100 times transforms the response completely. You discover you can feel anxiety and still act, feel fear and still move forward, feel discomfort and still remain. Emotions that once seemed like tsunamis become waves that rise, peak, and naturally dissipate if not fed by mental stories. Now you know the truth. Your brain isn't your enemy. It's a machine running old programs, and every machine can be reprogrammed. The only question left is, will you continue obeying those programs blindly? Or will you pause, breathe, and observe the next time the familiar resistance appears? Because it's in that exact pause between stimulus and reaction that your life truly changes, not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready? Right now,